Hey everyone, welcome to the season 1, year 1 recap of the New England Endurance Podcast. It's hard to believe it's already been 1 year. We're wrapping up 29 episodes. This would be episode 30. We've reached 30 countries. It's been an incredible ride. I'm your host, Art Trapotsis, and I'm here today with Eric Schenker. We're in the studio. What's up, Eric?
Unbelievable. 29 episodes, I think. I'm a little bit of a loss for words, I have to be honest, and that's generally not my issue.
So we want to start off just saying thank you to everyone, every single guest that's come on the show, everyone that's listened, everyone that's shared their story and their insights and their passion. Big shout out to someone who took a flyer on us as our very first guest, Dean Phillips from FitWorks.
Absolutely. That was great. That was a great episode, too. I think we're very lucky to get started with such a engaging guy and somebody that so many people know. So that was fun. And thanks to our sponsors who took a risk on us, wrote us some huge checks without knowing what was coming. So, they got in on the ground floor. No, but I have to echo that. It's been rewarding, but it's been a lot of fun. I mean, just, you hadn't done a podcast. I hadn't done a podcast. So it's been fun learning. I think one of the things that stood out for me is also how willing people were to share their stories with us. So that was sort of surprising. People came in here and told it like it was. So whether they were world champions, local legends, someone just getting into endurance sports, it was really amazing, and everyone's passion shone through. What's even cooler is that those stories are connecting. You're saying that we had listeners in 30 countries. I didn't even know there were 30 countries out there. But the fact is, your little magic science box there is saying we had downloads from 30 countries. That's pretty awesome.
Yep, we had a lot of European countries chiming in, folks from Latin America. So I'm not sure how they're hearing about us, but they are. And also all over our country as well. I think the folks maybe out in Portland and California are trying to figure out we're the greatest region.
Oh, yeah. I think everybody's trying to, I think the real estate is just going to keep getting it more expensive as we continue to do this podcast. People are just going to flood to New England.
So one of the coolest things that we realized in this 1 year long podcast is that how tight-knit our New England endurance community is. It feels like we're all just sort of 2 degrees of separation away from each other. And when you throw in the local events or the actual trails or the training groups, it's like we've all been on these same roads and trails. So, we have this shared experience here. We've also found that it's so fulfilling to get to know folks from all over the region because everyone has their own journey, and somehow it feels like we're all big one happy endurance family.
And everybody knows each. I mean, not everybody knows everybody, but there is a lot of overlap. But here's another sort of interesting takeaway, I think, Art, and that is the amount of overlap there is within specific sports, but also the lack of overlap there is outside of those sports.
What do you mean?
I mean, when we were talking to some of the bike clubs, the bike folks seem to really know a lot of the other bike folks, or they knew the rides that were happening, etc. But there was quite a bit of lack of awareness on some of the running events.
Yeah.
And some of the running events had no idea about some of the bike clubs. So I think hopefully by us not necessarily choosing a sport, but really talking about the endurance community, I do think we introduced a very close proximity adjacent people to each other, and hopefully opened up some minds for them to go out and try something new.
Yeah.
And
for example, mountain biking up at Willowdale. This is your backyard. We interviewed the folks from TARC who run the Trail Animal Running Club. They run that Stonecat. They run Stonecat. And, I've spoken with a bunch of mountain bikers, and they're like, oh, we didn't realize there was this iconic marathon running trail race on the same trails that we mountain bike on.
Yeah. No, I really appreciated that. And I hope we introduced people to try new things. And here's what my takeaway from a lot of this as well is how much did you and I learn? I mean,
big time.
We thought we were pretty dialed in. we what are you talking about? There's a what? Where? I learned a lot from this podcast, so I hope other people too. And I think the other thing I learned, or the other thing that was confirmed to me, is simply how scrappy and resilient the endurance community is here. I mean, some of the events we talked about, like swimming across lakes in Vermont, to Canada during freezing temperatures, grinding through some absolutely epic, brutal gravel races. It speaks to the toughness of the region. New England athletes, they don't mess around. And I think that was only solidified here from every discussion that we had.
Yes, when we kicked off this podcast, the idea was pretty simple. We wanted to highlight the amazing endurance scene right here in New England. And there are so many epic stories and so many people doing extraordinary things. It felt like these stories needed to be told. And honestly, at the time, we weren't even sure if this was going to be a short-term project or something that really had some legs. And now that Eric and I are hearing from many of you, I can say that it feels like we're just getting started and excited to get into year 2.
Yeah, big shout out to you, Art. I mean, you definitely spearheaded this venture. We were sitting down. I can't remember. We were having coffee probably. And you're like, hey, do you want to do a podcast? I was like, okay. Yeah. I don't think we talked about what it was going to be about, but I mean, we loosely, it has definitely become much more than I thought it would be, and that reflects how much people trust and respect what we're doing, and it has struck a chord, right? Like as we have moved on in our episodes, when we would reach out to potential guests, they would say, "I love your podcast," or "I've listened to your podcast." That to me is incredible. That I was like, whoa, that, for the first couple, hey, Dean, hey, buddy, I know you know me, I know you, we're friends. How about coming on this podcast? I mean, there's not much to lose, but the fact that as we started reaching out to people at the end and they had actually listened to it, or people started coming prepared with some answers, that was really fun. So,
and I remember we originally sort of whiteboarded something like 30 guests. We're like, okay, here's the list of folks and it covered so many different disciplines, and we tried to get all the states. So this season we had the privilege of covering all 6 New England states.
Whoa, wait a minute. 6?
Yes.
What is that 6th state?
Even Connecticut.
I gotta show more love for Connecticut. It is in New England.
Yes, it exists.
It exists.
And Ben and Brian Wolf confirmed that on one of our recent episodes.
They're doing amazing things down there. So they're great guests, and we do need more guests from Connecticut in 2025.
Absolutely. And we were looking to focus not only on our core sports for Eric and I, which is cycling and rowing and running, but we had 10 different disciplines this past year. We had road cycling, we had gravel riding, obviously road running, swimming, rowing, triathlon, mountain biking, trail running, backcountry skiing, and cross-country skiing. It's been an amazing mix. And I have to say the diversity of sports and athletes in this area of New England is just incredible.
And let's just clarify, the swimming was not lap swimming. Swimming was open water, ocean, Boston Harbor, freezing lakes in northern New England swimming.
It was extreme swimming.
That was extreme swimming. So that was maybe my takeaway when I look back at this. Like, I was introduced to a new sport that I had really liked, that open water swimming. And
those folks were Craig Lewin with endurance swimming, and also Adina with Team Be Real.
Team Be Real. Yeah, really, really cool. So, okay. So we're going to get into a completely objective, other than one top 5, completely objective, subjective, I should say, top 5. So we're going to talk about the top 5 hidden gems in the region, totally based on our own endurance preference. Top 5 answers to tell us why you agree New England is the greatest endurance region in the world.
Eric's favorite question.
I love that question. My parents didn't like how you asked it. I wasn't on a couple podcasts. And my parents, 5 stars, definitely got a 5-star rating from them if they know how
if
they know how to do the rating. They said, we don't really, you asked the question much better than your co-host. I thought that was great. And we're going to kick it off with the top 5 episodes downloaded in year 1 of the podcast. And what you told me the other day, there's definitely been a little bit of jockeying for position. I think some people have posted towards the end of the year here, hey, make sure you download, or some hey, we're all competitive, right? I think some competitiveness amongst some friends in the space.
Oh, big time. So as of this recording, which is late December 2024, we've got the top 5 here. We've got New England Mountain Biking Association, NEMBA, coming in at number 5.
That was a great episode. Let's just, if we could talk about the episodes, like I learned a lot about what NEMBA does.
And all the trails they help build and develop.
And the mapping. So I think that was my, when I think about that episode, I was like, whoa, they do a lot more than I thought they did.
And I've done a lot more mountain biking since I've listened to that episode.
I think I have, as I have been doing more mountain biking, I've just appreciated it a bit more, like the fells. Like I went and mountain biked in the fells after that episode. I've been there many times, but I had a different appreciation for it.
Yep.
Also, pretty freaking hard mountain biking.
That's
in the
pretty
fells,
gnarly in there,
by the way. So,
number 4, we have Gravel Boston. We had Matt and Alex here, and their crew that's doing a great job trying to get folks out on their gravel bikes in the Boston area. Number 3, one of my favorites was we had JD Hale with the Rippers, a cycling team based out of Winchester.
And shout out to JD for giving us some swag as well, right? Like he brought in some nice swag.
Got a nice hat, couple nice hats.
Yeah, so no, but JD, very inspiring story, I would say, also in terms of their commitment to Pan Mass. And I mean, I don't know, the incredible amount of money that they have raised and will continue to raise.
Mm-hmm. And then number 2 on the list was our first guest, Dean Phillips from Fitworks. He's a world-class rower and cyclist, and that was an awesome episode.
And what monster.
That's right. And then the number 1 episode was with Conti's Bike Shop. We had the legendary Mitchell Skip Foley on, telling us about his life as a cyclist and as a, starting off as a football player. And that was just a very fun episode for me. And, those round out the top 5 for the year. What do you think?
What does it tell us?
It tells us, I don't know, that maybe most of our audience are cyclists, because all of those folks are part of the cycling world.
Yeah. But it was also, I would also argue the cycling teams here definitely did a better job promoting that they were on the podcast. Whether they thought they were more proud of it than maybe some of the run clubs or other folks, but there definitely maybe was a little bit of wildfire that some of those folks spread, because I think there were so many great episodes across. But hey, science is science. The facts are what they are. So let's get into kind of my fun question I'd like to ask. The top 5 answers we got when we asked the question: tell us why you agree New England is the greatest endurance region in the world. And so a lot of folks obviously talked about, I'll say number 1, sort of proximity, right? Everybody talked about, you can get anywhere in a short amount of time: ocean, mountains, gravel, what have you. So I'm kind of rolling everybody's proximity answer into one.
Yeah, within 2 to 3 hours, you can hit some amazing different types of.
Yeah. Somebody had made a comment about Nebraska, right, the other day. Like, you can drive for hours and hours, and it's the same terrain in Nebraska. Obviously, sorry, that was proximity. Then naturally that lends itself to terrain, that we have mountains, we have ocean, we have forests, we have rivers, lakes. We have it all in a short proximity. And, whether it's good or bad, why do you agree? We have the weather. We have the best, most diverse 4 seasons of anywhere. We have crazy hot, humid summers. It's as time of this recording, it's in, I don't know, is it 10 degrees Fahrenheit outside? So, these are all happening. We have the most beautiful foliage in North America. So the weather, so we got proximity, terrain, and weather. There were 2 answers that I thought stood out also that didn't really actually talk about those 2 things.
Oh, what are those?
First one, I'll give a shout out to Dan from Heartbreak Hill Running Company. And he sort of said something to the effect of, it's the people and the commitment to excellence. And we sort of tell us a little bit more about that. It's basically the endurance community reflects the professional community and all the applications that it takes to make groundbreaking science. You think those people go home and just sit on the couch? Those people apply the same vigor, the same effort, the same commitment to their endurance sports. And then he also he said the leading edge community and a leading edge endurance community. And I really thought that was interesting. So if I'm understanding him correctly, he was saying the reason that New England is such a strong economic region is because we have great endurance athletes. That's basically what he said, right? If I read that correctly.
That was one of my favorite answers of all time. I mean, basically, the endurance community are wicked smart.
We're wicked smart. But just the fact that, he was sort of saying, hey, if you're a scientist working in biotech, you're hardcore, you're type A, you're putting a lot of commitment to that. Of course, you're going to apply that same level of vigor and excellence to whatever it is that you're doing. And I thought that was a very good sort of connection that I hadn't made that sort of made sense when he spoke it.
After he said that, I thought of something with regards to training plans.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, if you take a company like Training Peaks, if they looked at geographically, where the most training plans exist, I wonder if it is New England, because you have these type of people.
We want a plan. Give me a plan. I'll follow the plan. And the weather doesn't matter, right? Like we're going to get out there. The other one, I'll give a shout out to Jordan from the Notch Running Club, and actually now a Tracksmith. Interesting. We interviewed them both. Now Jordan got a job at Tracksmith. I'm not saying that's because of us, but who knows? But basically, he's basically said, hey, New Englanders have a natural toughness. Grit, right? And we are tougher than he is, and he comes from California. So he basically said,
he's tough.
He basically said, listen, New Englanders are tough. They're tougher than me. I was raised in California. What you guys do here is crazy. So again, leaning on science. If A equals B and B equals C, then Jordan basically said that all New Englanders are tougher than all people from California. So I really appreciated that. I totally agree with him. But those are the top 5 reasons why people agree that New England is the greatest endurance region in the United States, if not the world.
Love that. We might have to come up with a new question for this year.
Or a different spin. But I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the question. So
we had another top 5 here, hidden gems. And honestly, there's probably a top 20 or 30.
Absolutely.
There were so
every
many.
episode brought a hidden gem.
Yes. We haven't, really dove into this before. And as athletes, as Eric and I, have done many different types of endurance events, we never really stopped and asked ourselves this question, but the podcast gave us this platform. So the first one, a hidden gem that I loved and that I hope I participate in someday is called The Ranger. It's a gravel event. Rachel and Tyler Cohen came on the podcast many months ago and shared this incredible community gravel event, and it's on my list.
It has to be. I think when we recorded it was like 2 weeks away or a week away. I can't remember what it was.
Back in June, I think.
It just sounds like a family fun, beautiful spot. And I loved what was it they had where it's, they had the segments in the event.
Yes, within the event.
So
yes.
So you're not racing from start to finish, but there were still some competitive juices flowing. And I really liked, that was the first time I had heard about that. So that was one of my takeaways from that hidden gem. Oh, wait, sorry. They also had the bike rack rental at the library that they fund.
Yes.
How cool is that?
If you had a family of 4, you can go rent a bike rack and then...
The local library.
Yeah.
And they also had, now I'm just coming to me. Didn't they have 4 or 5 breweries in this little podunk town in Vermont? So that was a really cool
good
episode.
One to go back and listen to.
Good people, yeah, for sure.
So there's another hidden gem. It's a lake way up in Vermont, I think Newport, Vermont, called Lake Memphremagog, if I'm pronouncing that right. And there were 2 really cool events there if you're into swimming. One was the Kingdom Swim Festival, where you had an opportunity to swim to the border of Canada. And that was mentioned by Craig Lewin. And Adina, another guest of ours, Dina O'Neill, mentioned the Winter Festival, where there's a cold water swimming event. Basically, they carve out a piece of the lake so you can swim, I don't know, 100 meters. And I just
in
thought
the
that
ice.
was
Just to clarify, they carve out the ice and make a lap pool.
It's like,
in the
can you
ice.
do 1 or 2 laps?
Yeah.
So that was another hidden gem. Number 3 for me was the Wild Corn Backcountry Ski Festival at King Pine Ski Area. We interviewed on episode 8 the Granite Backcountry Alliance, and I really want to get more into uphill skiing, skimo, backcountry skiing, whatever you want to call it this year.
Yeah, no, that's Wild Corn is a legendary event. I don't know how much it translates down here to sort of central or southern New England, but up in the Whites, it's a day that everybody talks about leading up to it. So you should definitely find your way up there. But I think it's just turned into much more than it used to be. I mean, right? It was a couple days, concerts. I mean, it is far more than what it used to be.
Cool. Can't wait for that. I think it's in early April. Then we turn to running as one of our hidden gems. Millinocket Marathon. Dan and Jordan from Notch Running mentioned this, and we looked it up. We did some research on it, and this does look like a pretty cool hidden gem. It's right at the base of Mount Katahdin, I think, is right there local, and that's worthy of the top 5.
Yeah, I can't remember. Was that a qualifier? Also, I can't remember. I'd have to go back and
BQ?
look. It was a BQ, but I mean that rolled right off Dan's tongue. I mean, we asked him, and he quickly came up with that. And I think I saw on Instagram a couple people. I think it happens in the fall here or something, and a bunch of people from Notch went up and did it again. So he put his money where his mouth is.
Nice. Another great episode. And then the last one, my favorite hidden gem, something I just did recently, is the Cranberry Century with the Charles River Wheelers, and we interviewed Randolph Williams, and that's an episode that went up late in 2024. So that rounds out the top 5 hidden gems. There's at least another dozen. Every episode, you find out something new, whatever sport of choice you have.
How many of those had you never heard of? I mean, that's what I think is so interesting. Is we've been racers, we've running racing, we've rowing racing, cycling racing. So we've, we're not young.
Yeah,
we've been doing it for a while here in New England, and the fact that every time we're sitting here with a pen and paper, like, oh. Yeah, we got to write that down. That sounds amazing. We don't have enough. Maybe we have to take a year off from recording, do all these events and come back, then come back and do the episodes. Because I'm
game.
That to me just proves the point, right? That there's so much here in New England, in this small little slice of the planet, that we're doing this podcast and we're learning about new events. That to me was
my favorite part of the podcast.
I really enjoy that. Yep.
So let's look to next year. There's a ton more people we want to interview and get on the show. I want to say a few names. If they're listening, if you know them, pass along the information. I'd love to get Adam Meyerson with Cycle Smart. That would be fantastic to hear his story. He's a local cycling legend. Dave McGilvery, he's the race director of Boston Marathon. Someone from Special Olympics, Massachusetts or New Hampshire would be really fun to interview as well, to hear what they're doing. As a person who grew up in manufacturing, I'd love to talk with some of the local bike manufacturers like Richard Sachs, frame maker from Connecticut. A couple of big Vermont gravel riders would be fun too, like Ian Boswell or Ted King. And lastly, because a lot of my friends do this event, I'd love to chat with someone from the Mount Washington Hill Climb organization.
Yeah, there's some big names and some cool events.
What about you, Eric? Who would you like?
I got a couple. I think one thing you mentioned, Special Olympics, and I do think we can do a little bit more to highlight some of the charitable endurance connected events or organizations in New England, because there are so many.
Yeah.
An organization that I've known for a while. I actually was first introduced to it from the Somerville Roadrunners folks a couple years ago. Organization called Back on My Feet, and when you hear about that, you're gonna be blown away. So
I look forward to that one.
Yeah, friend of mine, Andrew Drummond from White Mountain Ski Company.
One of my favorite folks to follow on Instagram.
Basically the OG of backcountry skiing, but he does a lot more than that. He does Friday Night Vert. There's a uphill trail running series up in the White Mountains. A lot of free events, a lot of just great community building endurance up in the White Mountains. and somebody I'd like to get on the podcast. Vermont 50 organizers. I mean, that is got to be one of the most iconic events in New England. The new owners at Parley getting down to some manufacturing. There's a new director, the head of the Charles. Be interesting how her experience has been after the first, after going through it for the first year. And obviously you and I are local legends from the announcing team. And then, of course, Helmet from Helmet Strudel Racing on the North Shore. Really one of the most elusive.
Who is this?
He's one of the most elusive endurance athletes in New England. Really hard to pin down. He's probably one of those guys that's listening from all those different 30 countries. But I'd love to get Helmet
Strudel. Okay.
Helmet from Helmet Strudel Racing on the podcast. But, for those that are listening to this episode, if you've got somebody you think we should feature, let us know. Hit us up on Instagram. Some of the best episodes, some of the best guests have actually come from recommendations straight from this community. So please reach out if you know somebody or an organization that you think would be interesting, which really, again, relates back to building the endurance community, not just the hardest core athletes out there.
Yeah, I would like to give a special honorable mention to the dude from 603 Endurance, Tom Hooper. He's someone building community. He's got all these trail running events like that. That was a really cool episode, and we didn't mention it earlier in this recap, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention his name.
And he hails from the greatest state.
That's right, baby, 603.
603.
So, Eric, will we keep this going in the new year?
I would love to. It's something I really enjoy. It's something I wish I could probably dedicate a little bit more time to.
You want to go full time on this?
I mean, would love to. I don't know that that's really in the cards, but I'm enjoying it. I think we're doing something good, right? I think we're bringing something to the community. It's making me feel good. You sent me a little screenshot the other day. We're in the top 25% of all podcasts. I don't know how that is, but I think that's pretty cool. But the fact is that we are, when we're reaching out to guests in the endurance community, like I said before, and they're saying, "Oh, I love your podcast," or "I've listened to your podcast," and we haven't been the ones that have told them about it.
Exactly.
Like, before, why don't you listen to a couple? And then they're like, "Oh yeah, I really liked it." No, I heard it. It makes me. I'm really proud, Art.
Yeah,
I got to be honest with you. I'm really, really proud of it.
And I've enjoyed having you as my co-host on this. So
it's been fun. We've been friends for a long time, and it's been great.
Yeah, just recapping. I think if the first season is any indication, we should definitely keep this thing going. There's still so many more athletes and communities, organizations we need to cover, and it's going to take us at least all next year to get through those. So. I can't wait.
So everybody that tuned in, sent feedback, or simply gave us a listen while out on a run or a ride, thank you. Really, it's been fun. You made this journey incredibly rewarding, and we can't wait to keep the momentum rolling. So here's to more miles, more stories, more swims, more trails, more skiing, and thanks for being part of the New England Endurance Podcast family. We'll see you in 2025 for season 2.
Yes, thank you all.